All right, here we are again for our second episode of Finding Peaks talk show. And my name is Brandon Burns, and I'm joined here again by my colleagues and friends, Clinton Nicholson and Jason Friesma. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
So good to be here.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, glad to see your more authentic selves are showing up in the second episode.
Every show is a journey.
There we
Yeah.
go, and we're on it. So coming into this episode, over the past week, really surveying company culture and the ins and outs of what we do each and every day. The milieu fluctuates throughout each and every day in attitudes about what's in front of them. It could be the meal that's in front of them. It could be mainly the needs or the things that we need to provide to patient care to make this go well. But what I often find in delivering the services and building up a program to make things well for the individual so they can focus on themselves and their internal recovery process, that we end up finding a lot of distractions along the way. Sometimes our cooking from our chef isn't at the level in which they would expect to see it at. Sometimes the pillow is just a little bit too rough and different from home and distracts them from the recovery process. And all of these things seemingly get in the way of recovery at times, even when they're seemingly very small situations. And so really just wanted to, create a discussion around, for the viewers and for families, what are the actual responsibilities of a treatment center, and what do treatment centers need to do to, bring clients in front of the recovery journey and reduce those distractions, along the way. So, from my position, certainly I want to provide a nutritious meal to our patient demographic, but at the same time, we're not a restaurant, and that's not why we're in business, to create the best possible 5-star meal in that regard. So, though it's important to deliver those things, I just kind of wanted to walk through maybe your thoughts around the purpose of treatment, maybe how to reduce those distractions, but really, how does a treatment center properly engage the client in care?
Wow, big question. Good
Yeah.
lead in. It's almost like when I think it's important for a treatment center to provide for the basic safety of clients and to create some space for them to feel safe and be safe from the things that were around them. But the things you listed, like food not being up to par or the pillow's a little too firm, it's almost like those are maybe distractions from somebody being on a recovery journey. Oftentimes during a clinical process or during a counseling process or recovery process, clients are uncomfortable, and they'll take that internal discomfort, emotional internal discomfort, and then project it onto other things and really zero in on those things. Now, it doesn't mean that the client isn't experiencing these complaints with all sincerity, and I do think it's a treatment organization and a clinical team's job almost to bring the focus back on, like, okay, your pillow's uncomfortable, how are you uncomfortable? Yeah, see, that's a counseling
Well
thing, Clinton.
played.
Yeah,
well
yeah,
played.
you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that first and foremost, we're there to provide safety. But the point of providing safety for the clients is actually so that we can then disrupt them, right? So that we can then allow them to experience discomfort in a way that is where they feel stable and secure and safe enough to work through that and process through that. So if we were to sit there and work to try to put out every fire or quell every sort of little nagging issue that somebody comes up with, then we're actually not really preparing the client to go back out into the world and deal with disruption, because that's what life is. It's just this sort of constant state of being disrupted. And when you're in active addiction, part of that, the role of the addiction and the role of the substance use is to sort of kind of nullify that or numb that out. And now we want clients to actually embrace that again, to sort of walk back into being awake and feeling disrupted and feeling sort of disjointed in their life. And so being able to, like Jason said, help people become aware of, the pillow is uncomfortable, so why are you uncomfortable? Again, that's bringing that awareness back inside of them. And allows them to sort of move through that and develop the skills needed to sort of kind of face life on life's terms.
Yeah. I think one of the major considerations is to create that environment of safety, especially in influencing a business and growing it out. One of the things I always talk to families about when I get the opportunity to get them on the phone is that, over the course of, therapy, we talk about what triggers you to use drugs and alcohol. I'm driving down the road, I get a phone call from a friend, they say, let's go to the movie. And I think, when I go to the movies, it triggers me to want to smoke pot or, shoot dope or whatever it is that makes that a more enticing environment. But if we've been using drugs and alcohol for a period of 5 to 10 years, we're talking about not just going to the movies triggering, usage of pot, we're potentially talking about hundreds, if not thousands of potential triggers. And it seems, though, that the intention of the treatment center is to provide a safety or a space of safety for the individual coming in. One of the benefits of coming in and sort of not checking all boxes along the way is that we actually get to trigger them in the process and get to see their real world experiences sort of take place in front of us and then get to, work with them through that.
Well, yeah, I'll push back just a little. We don't maybe intentionally trigger
Right.
clients. I don't think it's healthy to set the Jack Daniels bottle on the middle
Right.
of a group and be like, okay, everybody,
Right.
everybody smell it and what comes up for you.
Yeah.
Because the triggers are internal, right? Most of those, like the movie analogy that you made, that makes a lot of sense. But what is it about that nostalgia feeling, or that sense of comfort, or getting out of your house, or whatever it is, in any length of time, and setting the right tone in a treatment center, all those things are going to come up. Clients are going to feel triggered through no effort of our own. It's just going to come up, and we do, hopefully, at Peaks provide a good, prompt at times, pushing people into discomfort, and when is the pillow's discomfort not about the pillow? When is it about your own discomfort, or what is increasing your fear, making you want to be in control of everything over here? Those are kind of those prompts. So I just want to clarify that just being sober for 30 days and being in a recovery program is going to provide all of its own triggers and prompts necessary for good clinical growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think that generally speaking, again, life is a ball of triggers, right? So,
Yeah.
and in a recovery environment, the one thing that I would actually say that's maybe a little bit different than Jason is one of the sort of phenomenon of the recovery journey, or especially in a residential level of care, is this idea or experience of the pink cloud, where for the first time in maybe years in your life, you're sober, you have clarity, again, you feel safe, because we've done our job as a facility and as a program to help you feel safe, to help you build community, to feel supported, to have access to people that care about you and listen to you, and want to be there to support you. And then all of a sudden there's this overwhelming feeling of I'm great, everything is good, I feel fantastic, I'm ready to go do this. And we're talking we're on day 14 of their actual recovery. And so being able to clinically kind of predict that, and also develop clinical strategies that are intentionally built to sort of disrupt that process and sort of that sort of false sense of security, or at least a sense of security that is much more fragile than it feels or is perceived, I do think is really important. I think that, my personal belief is that if it's not messy, it's not recovery, and sometimes we do need to go in there. It's not like we're purposefully giving people really crappy pillows,
Right.
Or only feeding them Taco Bell or something like that, but we're doing,
That sounds good.
yeah, yeah, no offense, Taco Bell is not a sponsor, so, yeah, but, being able to provide, not too long ago we did, you have this sort of experiential interventions of something like Capture the Flag, where all of a sudden something that is a fairly benign game that kids play becomes this extreme life experience where you have competition and conflict and communication issues and feelings of insecurity come up. I mean, so you really, to speak to Jason's point again, you don't really have to do a whole lot, right? Because it will sort of come up naturally. But at the same time, to some degree, treatment has to be designed towards to provide a little bit of discomfort, or at least motivate that to the degree that people can continue to grow and not get stuck in a false sense of safety.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, facilities' purpose and goal is to provide quality care and create that safety environment, but it seems like discomfort's a really important piece of the process, and at times, through challenging, clients in that regard, that's what creates sort of the clinical fervor and motivation for change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so it is this balance, right? That we do provide this safe space for there to be this disruption, and then helping clients see that they can resolve it, hopefully on their own, that they can learn to regulate their emotions in that way, and tolerate some distress in their life and not decompensate. I often find that when I'm working with clients, like they'll have a feeling good or bad, happy, sad, mad, glad, whatever it is, and in some ways their process is usually I'm feeling a feeling, I need to do something about it. Usually that alone can be triggering. Like I am feeling happy, I need to celebrate that, or I'm feeling afraid, so I need to do something about that. And sometimes it's just about helping people slow down and let emotions resolve on their own. And I think providing that safety when Capture the Flag stimulates some sort of response in people, helping them have that response and then also resolve it and get to the other side, and provide that net where we can kind of catch them and help them be safe and regulate that on their own.
Absolutely.
So sounds like through creating a safe environment, we are also creating discomfort along the way. And so now Johnny, who's in programming, experiencing discomfort, whatever that discomfort is, and having a difficult time engaging in therapy, wants to pick up the phone, call mom, dad, family member, somebody, say, pick me up, this isn't working, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, this isn't meeting my needs. What should we be telling the families in this regard? Like, what is their responsibility in this process when they get that phone call? And not just under, that strict criteria, but what are they doing in the background for themselves in the direction of their loved one's care, and how can a facility support that?
Well, preparing a family that Johnny's going to call and say, in a few weeks when he falls off the pink cloud, or his little bubble bursts a little bit, like he's going to get uncomfortable. We can predict that. And just like I said a minute ago, when the clients kind of have a feeling and they think they need to do something about it, they've oftentimes trained family members that, hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable, you need to do something about it. And really helping people disconnect from that. And it is why, we do tend to kind of make sure that we really manage phone calls to families well, and in contact with families, because usually there needs to be some healing space for the family as well. But we can tell families, like, your job is just kind of hold firm and honestly get into your own recovery journey, whatever that might look like, and through whatever means necessary, whether it's counseling or other community or church type support meetings and that sort of thing. So, because if we can predict if we can sit here and talk about it, then we certainly know it's going to happen. And then if a family knows that, hey, in 3 weeks, like, you might get a call that they're dysregulated and they'll complain about, the bread was too crunchy today at breakfast, and so I got to go. The families can be prepared to be like, cool, and how about if you don't leave?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the family guru over here, so he's the guy to ask. Yeah, absolutely.
Ask me anything.
No, I think Jason's spot on. There's a tremendous amount of preparation and communication that has to go on outside of the actual residential world, or outside the actual facilities that the actual client is working in. I mean, just as much work is happening on the outside as there is on the inside, and really engaging families and prepping them to hold these boundaries that are, like Jason spoke to, can be really malleable because of the relationship, the disease, the sort of dynamics that have occurred throughout the client's active addiction, where there's a sort of rescue moment where the parent feels he hears the sort of call of their child to be saved, and that's the instinct, is to go and save them. And so being able to sort of dial that down, or help families kind of push against that instinct, or that it requires a lot of work. Like, that's a very intentional thing that has to happen. So And then for myself, I also like to prepare the clients for the fact that, hey, by the way, in about 2 weeks, the bread's it's gonna taste really crusty.
Yeah.
You know, like you're gonna have this moment in your treatment arc where you're gonna wanna leave, and you're gonna have, so let's explore all of the different reasons why you would think that you might wanna leave. You know, whether it's your own family, it's like I have kids, I've got bills to pay, I've got a job, I don't like crusty bread, whatever it is, sort of prepping them as well to be able to acknowledge these moments when they happen before they do.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the families whose loved one recently went through Peaks Recovery, on the phone with her, right as he's entering treatment, she says, I just don't know what I'm going to do, not having my phone blown up all the time with him being angry at me, or him asking for money for drugs, or for him asking for money for some strange story that took place in his life, or whatever the case is. And it seems like in a way they've become sort of wrapped around the trauma of addiction in that regard. Maybe for a lack of better words that you guys can better inform me with.
Well, I'll use the words.
Okay.
The kid's addicted to drugs, the family's addicted to the kid being addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
It's a very similar process.
Right.
Absolutely.
Powerlessness, unmanageability,
Yeah.
all those same kind of processes
Yeah.
occur.
Yeah.
And so recovery is also really important to break that.
Absolutely.
And getting some sobriety time and detox time, if you will, from the drama.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Addiction is a disease that permeates all levels of family, all levels of relationships. I mean, it's something that, just the person who is engaging in substance use is not the only person that is struggling with addiction at that point. So I think being able to wrap around families and wrap around loved ones that have been struggling with this disease and treating it just like they are experiencing the same level of crisis as their loved one, I think that's really vital and really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and out of those experiences of intensity, I think just, reminding families too that they're a part of this healing journey. Directionally, they're getting, they're healing in the background just as much, and should put, a solid amount of energy into that process as well too, whether supported by our staff at a place like, Peaks Recovery Centers or Beyond the Walls through Al-Anon and these sorts of things, I think are quite promising. So yeah. In that regard, I know we're getting close to the edge of our time here, but just one more aspect of this is, what should we be telling families about the patient's responsibility in this? What do they need to be focused on going through the recovery process, be mindful of? Because to me, care is directional. So what I'm stating here is that, or what I'm trying to state is that oftentimes you hear post-recovery, oh, the treatment program didn't work for me, that spaghetti meal didn't work for me, and that's why I left. Whatever the case might be, that there's a challenge in there that the facility could have done better, certainly, maybe in those moments, but what is it maybe that the client or the patient's missing in that moment? Because a big part of this is their volitional participation in staying focused and directional to resolve the current state that they're in. So what do we gotta, sort of educate the patient demographic on here about their responsibility throughout this process?
Wow.
I guess I would say, and it piggybacks on what Clint was saying, is just being able to predict and describe the process. That a removal of a substance does not mean recovery. And in fact, it's merely the beginning of a much longer journey, and being able to say, you're not going to get sober and in 2 weeks everything's fine with your family and your life's coming back together and your court issues are now over and everything is great. Like there's a lot to be committed to as far as like kind of a longer term process and a journey. I would just say predicting a journey.
Yeah.
My nice little counselor speak. Clean it up for me.
Yeah, no, I think like the removal of a substance, the only sure thing that's going to do is trigger the desire to use substances.
Right.
So if you
We'll get to the why really quick.
exactly,
Yeah.
I mean, so if you and then the majority, especially in early recovery, that addict mind, that addict brain, I mean, on a physiological level, is just going to do anything possible, say anything possible, attach to anything possible to make sure that drive is satiated, and so just being really upfront about that and really very realistic about that. It's, hey, by the way, you're an addict, so you're going to experience cravings because you have a pretty strong addiction, and your brain is going to tell you as you get more and more uncomfortable that the only way I can do this is by getting out of here to go use, and whatever means necessary. And again, that's when all of a sudden the bread is crusty, the pillows are lumpy, you know, I don't know, you know, the steak wasn't cooked perfectly medium today, you know, whatever the case may be. Your brain is going to attach to anything, and we're going to be here to stand by you while you ride that out, because that's the most important part, is that in those moments you stay still with us and that you allow us to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think day in and day out, you know, at Peaks, you know, whether it's 24, you know, hours of a stabilized, you know, client that we sort of rinse, wash, repeat throughout each and every day to inform the patient of why they're experiencing that distress or walk through that with them, to reach back out to the family to walk them through their distress and so forth. And, you know, if anything, I think here just leaving, you know, the viewers of the show with the fact that, you know, addiction is a complex process with many moving parts. In addiction treatment centers, I think there are these three really crucial components of it: what the facility does, what the family is doing in the background, and what the patient is doing within their care. And yeah, just appreciate you guys chiming in on this. And thanks for joining us for our second episode ever at the Finding Peaks talk show. And we look forward to next week's episode, and we'll see you all soon.